So the time has come where I am now starting to think about growing my chilies for the upcoming season. There are a few differences this year that I'm going to make, which will hopefully give me a little bit more success. So the reason I'm making some of these changes is that last year I found that I had some difficulty with germination. So I think the bulk of my chili seeds did struggle to germinate. I did use a mixture of different things in a heating mat, which I don't think quite gave me the best results. So some of the key differences I'm going to make this year, I guess, starting off are I'm going to start earlier in the season. So in Scotland, as you can anticipate, we don't have much sun. And so it's best to kind of prepare as early as you can so you can kind of extend out that growing season. And so my plan is to hopefully start sowing my seeds now around about mid-January. This is maybe a little bit earlier than most people would start, but the rationale for me doing so is that because I didn't have the best success last year, it means that if I don't get great success rates, I can hopefully start again in a couple of weeks and I won't have missed the growing season. The other big thing I'm going to change is my kind of potting mix. So last year I used a kind of sieved sort of seed starting mix, and I think it was holding too much water, and as a result of that I probably didn't get the best germination and had a little kind of some issues with mould, not necessarily damping off, and I think that was a combination of having to wait for so long because the seeds weren't germinating. And the other key thing here is this little kind of seed sort of starting kit from a company called Let Pot. So this is my first time trying this and we'll see how this goes. Some of the issues that I had last year, as I said, were also probably surrounding the heat mat. I think I couldn't really standardise the temperature, and certainly using a laser thermometer, I wonder if the heat was too high and that might have potentially cooked off some of the seeds, and that might have impacted things. So I think those are the kind of three big changes I'm going to make this year to see if it'll hopefully improve my germination rate. And here's the lineup for the season. So these are the chilies that I'll be hoping to grow this year. So there's a variety of different types here, some that will be a little bit harder to grow, some that are ornamental and hopefully easier that I can just pop on windowsills. And there's a variety of different companies here. So again, I haven't used seeds from any of these companies in the past, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of results we get. So first of all, here is a bunch of seeds from a company called Sea Spring Seeds. Again, never used these guys before, but they seem to have a lot of good reviews online. They have a kind of wide selection of chili seeds, and I think they've also been involved in the sort of creation of the Dorset Naga chili, so clearly know what they're doing. From them, I've got the kind of various different ones here. The Calamorich, I've got Lemon Drop, I've got an Orange Habanero, a Sparkler variety, again that'll be a wee ornamental that can hopefully sit in the windowsill, and some Fatales, which I've heard are quite good for making chili sauces. I've got a few different seeds here from kind of Thomson & Morgan, again a mixture of what seems like some habaneros, and these purple Buena Mulatas from Thomson & Morgan. These Black Pearl are, I think I just picked those up in Tesco. They were reduced. I think they were down to about 50 pence. So I thought I'd try those. And again, they're a little ornamental variety that should be grand in some pots. And this is from a company called Red Dragon. Again, I've never used these, but these guys seem to have a huge selection of chilies and chili seeds online, and a lot of them are really interesting varieties that you would probably struggle to find in the UK. This one in particular, again, I hadn't heard of until recently, called the Sugar Rush Peach Stripey, which apparently is got a kind of moderate spice level, sitting around kind of 50,000 in the Scoville unit or scale. But interestingly, apparently they've got a very kind of slightly sweet taste, and they work really well again for making chili sauces, and that's something I'd done last year, so I thought I'd try these and see what kind of results we can get. So what I'll do next is show you the kind of ratios of the recipe for my seeding kind of potting mix this year. And so I'm going to start off with is this cocoa coir here. So this is a big kind of 75 litre block, or it will be when it's reconstituted. And to this I am going to add 20 litres of lukewarm water. So we'll pop that in and then give that a bit of time. So it says about 20 minutes, but we'll probably give it about half an hour to expand. And then from that I will make a smaller batch, which we'll use our vermiculite, and I'll show you the ratios to make an ideal kind of starting seeding mix. So here we have our re-expanded cocoa coir. So you can see that's been re-expanded. This company includes these little kind of fertilizer sort of components, so you don't have to worry about sort of any fertilizer for that initial period. And the ratio in which we will mix this is kind of 9 parts of our cocoa coir to around 1 part of our vermiculite over there, and that will give us a good mix that can hold water, and it doesn't prevent things getting too damp, and also prevents things like damping off. We have our 1 part vermiculite, and you can measure that however you like. So you can use a shovel. Here I've just used a handful for ease so we can demonstrate. And we're going to mix that with kind of 9 parts of our cocoa coir. Now I like to sieve this. It's more important if you were using compost, because it means that you can sort of remove any stones, any sort of little chips or chunks of wood. So less important with your cocoa coir, but it just means overall you make the mixture much more fluffy, and it's easier for those kind of younger roots to kind of traverse and work their way and develop better in the soil. So it's a good idea of something to do. It's not essential, but a nice easy thing to do when you're starting out your seeds. So here we have the seedling tray that I'm going to be using this year with the system that I've got. So there's kind of, you can see 8 by 5 rows. So we're going to fill this up with the mixture that we made here. It means that I can grow 8 different varieties of chilies, and I'll try 5 of each, and we'll see how we get on. So we'll kind of start that, see what kind of success that we get. Once the seeds have soaked and we've placed them in here, we will top with a little bit more of this mixture and a little bit of vermiculite. And then in a little moment we can get rid of some of the excess, which should be us. So here I have the lineup of all the seeds that I will be growing this year. Now the first thing you want to do before you sort of sow these out is help them undergo a process known as scarification. Now there's lots of different techniques that will aid this, and what I did last year was use a weak tea solution, and some people will use hydrogen peroxide, some people will help actually even nick the seed shell to help them germinate, but this year all I'm going to try and utilise is a little bit of warm water, because I've heard kind of varying sort of stories about what is necessary and what's not. So I'm just trying kind of some warm water this year. You can soak them from anywhere between 2 to 24 hours. And then after you've soaked them for a period of time, they are then ready for you to sow out and try and get some germination success. Okay, so we're now 24 hours post seed soak. So you can see all the little cups here where we have all our individual kind of chili seeds, and these have all been soaking for around 24 hours. I don't know if you can see inside there. So what we're going to do is make a kind of small kind of divot in each of these little cell trays, pop our seeds for each individual kind of chili subtype in there. I've got my little labels pre-prepared here as well, and then once these have all been put in, you would ideally either dig these in a little bit and cover with a little bit of your kind of cocoa coir or whatever your seed starting mix that you're using, and then I like to kind of top with a little bit of this vermiculite here. So in theory this prevents the surface sort of remaining too damp. And once your chili seeds emerge, there's a risk of them undergoing something called damping off, which is where they undergo a fungal infection and mold can cause them to kind of die off. So the vermiculite kind of soaks up some of that surface moisture and kind of in theory reduces that risk. Once these have all been sort of teed up, what I will then do is put them in this little reservoir. So you can see this sitting here. So this reservoir will mean that what will happen is the seedlings will take their water from below, so they will just kind of soak that up from the bottom. Again, that sort of reduces the risk of damping off because you're not got too much water sitting on the top. And we will cover it with this little dome here, and that means that you'll get lots of humidity and it keeps everything nice and humid, which is what they like. And at the bottom there'll be a heater. So you want that nice and humid, nice and hot, and hopefully that will give them the perfect conditions to allow these seeds to germinate. So as you can see here, that's my first row all set up. The chilli seeds are just sitting just above the surface there. I've got my little label here so that we know what we're growing and can prevent ourselves getting confused. So this is a Sugar Rush Peach Stripey, which is a kind of variety I've never grown before but heard lots of good stuff about. So we're going to try that this year. There's our seeds just at the surface of the soil. I'm going to use this little tool here, just kind of push that ever so slightly just below the surface, kind of 3 to 5 millimeters. I'm going to cover that back up. What you want to do then is sort of push that, firm it down there. So that looks pretty good. Small kind of little layer of our vermiculite there. And again, not too much here, just enough that that hopefully reduces some of that kind of moisture sitting at the top. And that's that layer perfect. So we're going to do the same for all our varieties here, work all our way across, and once I've done that I'll bring back another little clip to show how we soak to the top. So again, just to give it initial good watering, and then it's ready for the bottom watering. So here we have our final tray with all the kind of varieties of chilli that we will be growing this year. So the Sugar Rush Peach Stripe, as we mentioned, some Fatale, a few habaneros, lemon drops, and a sparkler, which is more ornamental. Covered with the vermiculite, as I mentioned. So what we're going to do now is just give these all kind of good soaking from the top, make sure it's all nice and well hydrated, and then I've kind of almost filled that reservoir, maybe around 25%, and then once these are filled, they will just sit in that reservoir and wick away for the rest. So a bit of a kind of soaking from the top here. And there we have them in their final setup. So as you can see here, there's some light coming from the top. That should be automated for about 12 hours a day or 16 hours during the day, however you kind of want to tweak that, and will go off at night. There's also a heated element near the bottom, and again that should cycle the temperature within the kind of range that we want for chilies, so ideally between 23 to 28 degrees to keep these cells nice and warm. And the benefit of this system is there's a little kind of thermostat at the side there that you can see that should be keeping a close eye on that. So now we just have to give these a bit of time, see how they get on. So hopefully keep a wee eye out, and hopefully on Instagram we'll give you some updates on how things are coming along over the next few weeks. So thank you.